Welcome back to Radicalize Me. This is Joe. This is my face. I actually don't show my face very often on the channel. Little drawing of me instead. But this is me today, and I have with me a pretty cool guest. This is William Stodden, who's running for president under the Socialist Party USA ticket. So should we call you Bill, Doc Stodden, or
Bill's fine. Bill's fine. People can call me Doc. My friends and family call me Doc, but I make my bosses call me William and the police. So
yeah?
Bill's fine.
So we were talking before we started about Bill's multiple degrees in political science.
Mhm.
So, um, what what got you into political science? Were you a socialist from a young age, or were you like more of a liberal? Or
Well, I mean, like when I was probably six, no, eight, I remember marching for Walter Mondale with the United Steelworkers of America. My mother was a steelworker for my entire life. She put in 29 years and 10 months in at Bethlehem Steel in northwestern Indiana. And she was, like a lot of other steel workers in that area, kind of screwed over by the steel mill when they basically looted the whole place and then sold all their pensions so they could pay their investors. And she ended up getting screwed out of 30 years by 2 months by Bethlehem Steel when they delisted and went bankrupt. But in 1984, we marched for Walter Mondale, and I was pretty impressed by what Walter Mondale had to say. He was considered left of the majority of the Democratic Party. He was for raising taxes, which I think was a good thing, necessary at the time. He was for rebuilding the working class, and he was actually the last Democrat to really talk about the working class. After that, they started talking about the middle class, and so they sort of like threw the workers under the bus. I think about 1986, I was looking at like international relations. So this is when I was about 10 years old. And um, I started noticing that the Soviet Union and the United States constantly fought with one another in the United Nations. And I wondered why that was. And I was like, well, if the United States has been screwing up and overthrowing governments like in Panama or, in Latin America and things like that, this is the 80s. And so we had a horrible record with Nicaragua and El Salvador and all these places. Grenada was really kind of a formative thing in my memory. Um, if the Soviet Union disagrees with the United States, and the United States just does all these screwy things throughout Latin America, then that must be something that I need to take a look at, the Soviet Union. So,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it was an interesting introduction. Well, 1986 was just a few years before the Soviet Union kind of fell apart. But I became really interested in politics and especially the relations between the United States and the communist world at that time. And I was really interested in why it is that the United States is against everything that the communist bloc, if you want to say, and also Cuba, Yugoslavia and places like this, even that didn't necessarily fall in line specifically with the Soviet Union, China for that matter, why the United States was against all that stuff. And it sort of led me to interest in Latin American politics and why the United States was so hateful of the Cuban government and why we did everything we did in Latin America. That led into an interest in foreign policy decision making, and so forth. And that from 1986 on to 2012, when I got my PhD, and my dissertation was about U.S. policy and overthrowing governments in Latin America. It was like a lifelong journey of trying to understand why the United States' policy is the way it is. So yeah, I've been a socialist all that time. I joined the party in 2000. I officially joined the party in 2000 and went to the convention in 2001 and have been off and on with the party since then.
yeah. That there are these sort of inflection points in history, I guess, and it which one you sort of like come of age in has a lot to do with what
Right,
direction you go. Because I
right,
I hear this about Mondale for a lot of people. Um, I think yeah, George Carlin always was. We were talking about stand-up comedy too, but yeah, George Carlin was very much like, yeah, we're all fucked. Like this, this is over. But he
right.
talks. Sometimes he'll let on how like he was an idealist as a kid. He was like, or as a younger person, and he
Mhm.
said the last vote he ever cast was for McGovern, and that was like, you know, the
Yeah.
kind
That
of
was a
petered
long
out.
damn time ago.
Yeah. um, and yeah, it is interesting to hear that about Mondale, because that's I've heard similar things. And then Reagan won 49 states. Like the 80s was like a weird time.
Yeah.
And then I was born uh, the the year the Berlin Wall fell. Kids, you can look it up. Um, and yeah, because you were saying just you were around just before the Soviet Union fell. I
Mhm.
was, not even aware of my surroundings until probably right after it fell. And uh it really, like, growing up in this 90s and early 2000s, like, end of history, uh like, yeah, that, like, capitalism is sort of an unquestionable
Right.
law of the universe. And as much as a lot of people are still stuck in that thinking now, that does seem to be like the inflection point we're at, where, among other things, there is a lot of this sort of like people are, watching things unfold in the world on TikTok in real time and all
Mhm.
this. And kids are going like, wait a second, maybe it doesn't have to be this way.
Right.
Um,
This is an interesting topic that you're bringing up. I think that after the anti-war movement sort of fell apart when Obama was elected, and it kind of phased into first the Tea Party, which is obviously an astroturf movement sponsored by the rich and promoted by the ultra connected right wing elites. Then it phased also into Occupy, which brought a lot of really I think good class consciousness up to the front of the discussion between probably 2011-ish and 2012 in that time frame, and 2016 when Bernie Sanders was really like on TV quite a bit, and he was really talking about the 1% versus the 99%, and it was sort of taking the old makers and takers dichotomy and flipping it on its head. uh, you know, this really kind of, I think, energized a lot of people to start talking about capitalism as if it's not just automatically a good thing, if it's not just, as Thatcher would say, there is no alternative. Yes, there is an alternative, and a lot of people are seeing that. A lot of people are asking questions now because of the crazy, economic nonsense that we've been going through, where the government's on TV constantly saying how good the economy is and how much it's doing for us and how inflation has been brought down from 9% to 3.2%, when in fact 3.2% still means that prices are still going up for everyone, including for all things like rent, for all things like food, for gas and everything. Prices are still going up, even though inflation has been brought down. It's just going up a little slower, and I think that this is not only, now when, Bernie kind of kicked open the door. This is not an advertisement for Bernie by any stretch of the imagination. He opened the door, but then he refused to walk through it himself. We're now, the Socialist Party is out here and we're talking about the next step. All right. Now that we have the lingo of 1% versus 99%, what are we going to do about it? Well, the Socialist Party will argue that we need to start nationalizing things. We need to start nationalizing the health industry. We need to start nationalizing the workforce. We need to start nationalizing, obviously, the commanding heights of the economy, and we need to hand it over to workers to govern democratically, because it's the workers who know best how to operate the machinery of capitalism, and the capitalists just sit around, excuse me, on their ass playing golf all day, counting their checks, driving their Maseratis and complaining about how communist the government is. Well, I mean, if it was really communist, we wouldn't have half the problems that we have now. If it was really a socialist economy, I would say small c communist. If it was really a socialist economy, we could resolve a lot of the issues that we're facing now, which is why Stephanie and I are out here running on the Socialist Party's ticket.
Yeah, yeah, I think when you get into the weeds, there is like a lot that would change if we became a socialist society. But I think there's a way in for people when you talk about, like, it wouldn't be that different for, like, the existence of, say, like, the railroad companies. When I was talking a lot about this when that East Palestine thing was happening. because the whole story we were hearing was like the workers have been saying, we need more time for inspections. We need more people staffed on the train. We need to do this. Um, and so it's like, okay, well, who's stopping the workers from doing that?
Right.
We know
Right.
who.
Yeah.
And like Amazon. Uh, the problem is just that everything's funneled up to Jeff Bezos and a board of directors and shareholders, when like really Amazon is like a phenomenal central planning uh, agency that can get anyone anything in a couple of days, and it's amazing. So if it was publicly owned, if the workers decided how to run it democratically, and it would provide for them instead of just use them as fodder to run it, then you still have Amazon, but it's doing
Right.
something positive. It's just providing rather than like extracting.
There's a book that I want to kind of point your listeners to, if I can. This guy is not alive anymore. His name is Edward Bellamy, and he talked about, look, what happens when you have capitalism just let go on its own. Well, the tendency in capitalism is to monopolize. The tendency is to, they say that it's based on competition, and we have competition which helps the consumers. In reality, Walmarts of the world are octopuses. They're combines, and they're designed to eat up all the smaller competitors, to outcompete them, to drive them under and become the only market in the world, is what Walmart's ultimate business goal is. They don't like competition. They have politicians in their back pocket specifically to prevent competition in the market. Once you have a sector that's completely and totally controlled by Walmarts or Amazons, or in the the media sector, AOL, Time Warner, I might be dating myself, that might not be what they're called anymore. What Viacom or whatever, whatever these huge, massive combines, GE, and then of course in agriculture you got ConAgra and just a few of these things. Once these things become monopolies, it becomes very easy then for you to say, okay, well, we're going to switch this company from all benefit to the shareholders, which is a tiny fragment of the people who are involved in that economic activity, to all benefit to the workers, which you keep the same structure in place. You just take the benefits and distribute them to the workers. And I think that once you give workers a stake in their own companies, they'll not only make intelligent production decisions, because not only are they workers, but they're also consumers,
Yep.
right? And they know what they need in the market. They know what they're looking for in the market. You don't have to have some central planning board, over the whole economy deciding what the workers themselves, who are also consumers, can help decide what that is. They know how to manufacture stuff. They know how long it takes. They know how to do, even supply chains. If you go far enough up there, you got workers managing supply chains for these corporations as well. It'd be very easy to just take, and I know that some of the liberals out there will be having heart palpitations when I say this, to take the benefits that are exclusively for the small little segments of investors and transfer those benefits over to the vast majority of the workers. It'd be very easy to do that. We're at a stage right now when that's even easier now than it was even 20 years ago, when you actually had 12 major corporations in the media rather than 6 or 3, when you had, wealth being distributed amongst a bunch of billionaires rather than just a few. We know that less than 1%, 1/10 of 1% controls like half of the wealth in this country. How easy would it be to require that one half of 1% to begin sharing their wealth with the rest of us? I mean, to me, that it's simple, and the only thing that we're lacking is a group of people up there right now who have the political will to make something like this possible. And I think that if we take a look at this, even if we don't have to follow Bellamy's lines, but Looking Backward is his book. Looking Backward is a great book. It's a utopian, socialist utopia that actually inspired Eugene Debs to get into the socialist movement from the labor movement, and from there to start the Socialist Party of America. Looking Backward. But we don't even have to follow that model. We can follow the model that the Socialist Party has come up with now, where we have workers' collectives who are deciding the things, who are deciding production models in their own, and they're working with consumer collectives to find out what the market needs, what the people need, and find ways to supply that. I think that'd be a great thing. It's a very easy thing, and we don't have to worry about policy at this point because the rich would just be outvoted if we actually had democracy.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Well, I always say that, like, Americans seem to think that democracy is begins and ends at like voting for the president every 4 years, and it's like,
yeah,
well, think you got to look at, and especially when you're comparing the U.S. to these socialist countries that people are like terrified of. It's like, well, okay, but in some of these places, at least, the people get what they want and what they need a lot more than we do.
right. Exactly. And the thing is, and I'll say this real quick, that the right now we do have socialism. We have socialism for the wealthy, where we socialize all the risk. We force the vast majority of us to deal with the risk of these corporations, and we privatize the profits. If we just flip that around, where we're privatizing the risk, if you actually invest in a corporation, you should actually have some risk associated with it, where the benefits go to the vast majority of us rather than a tiny little segment of us. If you just flip that around, that little thing around, we could have socialism in this country without changing hardly any laws, if you think about it.
Right.
I mean, but like I say, we have to have the political will. And right now, the leaders of the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, even to some extent the Green Party. I don't remember Jill Stein going out and talking about nationalizing any segments of the economy. Bernie Sanders certainly doesn't. Or talk, she might talk about peace and the environment and how necessary it is to have more social democracy in the country. But we're actually talking about nationalization and socialization of huge segments of the economy for the specific purpose of putting actual democracy, or as the Greeks say, people rule. That's what the word means,
Right.
into our society, whereas instead of just paying lip service to it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of gets to what I also wanted to ask is that so both for the Socialist Party USA and yourself, um, because there's actually a few socialists running. You mentioned some of them, and we have like uh, you know, the Green Party, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. We have the Communist Party. We have Cornell
Right.
West, whatever. Um, so, I was reading your website. I'm hard pressed to find anything I really disagree with, but I think something that listeners might be interested in is, um, what sets the SPUSA apart from other socialist tendencies.
Mhm.
Um, why well, we'll get into this later, but maybe why have they all splintered so much? And also, I know you were saying you consider yourself more idealist than Marxist. Maybe you could just talk a little about what that means to you.
Well, I think to answer your first question, the one of the biggest things that separates the SPUSA apart from a lot of the other parties is, um, we definitely it's a tactical question. I think that's really what it is. It's not a strategic question. I think that PSL, there's a number of parties on the left we're all going in the same direction. We're basically all pointing at the same place on the horizon. We're different from DSA, for example, because the DSA believes that they can do the work within the Democratic Party and they can reform the Democratic Party. The Socialist Party emphatically denies that. That's not the strategic aim of the Socialist Party. The Socialist Party is a democratic socialist party, but the DSA is not a democratic socialist organization. They're a social democratic organization. They believe in working with the Democratic Party. A few locals may disagree with that overall plan, but basically when the DSA and the Socialist Party split in the 1970s, it was so the DSA could become a faction of the Democratic Party. And the people that left and formed the Socialist Party USA disagreed with that tactic. Okay. I don't know about the DSA's commitment to socialization of the economy. I believe that they believe that we can have a welfare state and be all happy with capitalism, very similar to Norway or Sweden or something like that, which are, by the way, very capitalistic countries. They're not socialist by any stretch of the imagination. They have social democracy there specifically to promote capitalism because you get rid of labor problems when you start paying people a lot of money. You get rid of absenteeism at work when you give people health care. I
American
mean,
capitalists are very bad at capitalism.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. Sweden is very good at capitalism. Denmark is very good at capitalism. And generally speaking, that's how they preserve their capitalist model, is through social democracy. That's not socialism. That's not people owning the means of production. That's still the capitalists owning the means of production. So we have a lot of these things in common with a lot of the groups on the left. We may have a different method of coming to internal agreement. We may have a different mode of governing if we were ever to get in power than some of the other groups. I'm not here to run down the other socialists. The Socialist Party USA is not competing against the Party for Socialism, Liberation and Socialism, the PSL. We're not competing with them. They're running their campaign. We're not here to compete with them. Our competitors are the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, which is the party of war, the Democratic Party, which is the party of mass incarceration, the Democratic Party, which is the party of pro-capitalism, not the Workers' Party. It's not a Workers' Party. It's not a party of the poor. It doesn't like the poor any more than the Republicans do. And as a matter of fact, it wishes the Republican or the poor in this country would starve to death. That's what the Democratic Party would do, because that would solve the problem of the poor. If we just starve them out of existence, well, what does the Democratic Party do? They means test everything. And so if you means test everything, you basically create programs for people with the least amount of political power, and then you set the people with the most amount of political power to make them pay for it.
right.
So of course they're going to use their political power to destroy those programs. That's what the Democratic Party believes in. We're not that. That's whatever we disagree with the PSL with, or any other leftist formation. We agree that those people are not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to be the party of capitalism. Why would you vote for the Socialist Party as opposed to the PSL? Well, uh, I don't know. That's the thing. The Socialist Party is a democratic socialist party, and so we believe that, first and foremost, all things must come through democracy, and that includes not only our internal workings, where we have really strong tradition to democracy, and we have a multi-tendency nature of our party, where we have Marxists working alongside of non-Marxists, and Marxists voting in convention for a non-Marxist to be their president. I'm not against Marxism. I just don't happen to see things 100% in that idiom. But that doesn't mean we can't work together. That doesn't mean we can't fight for the same things, because at the end of the day, we are fighting for workers to control the means of production. We are fighting for a radical revolutionary change in the society, where you can't go back to liberalism. You can't go back to the Democratic Party, because society has changed so fundamentally, and people haven't been empowered to such a point where they would be unwilling to give any of that up, to go back to the peace and tranquility of a liberal party like the Democratic Party. We're all fighting for peace. We all basically have the same position on Palestine, for example. We have the same position on race. We have the same position on sexism. We have the same position on workers' rights. We have the same position on the environment, for the most part. I mean, you don't find a lot of distance between us and other groups on the left, and that's just fine. There's a minor difference between them and us. There's a minor difference between us and other organizations that don't run political candidates, for example. We're a political party. That's what we do. PSL is a political party. That's what they do. We're willing to take on the Democrats. That's what the Socialist Party USA is. We don't support the Democrats. We're not going to pull any punches on the Democrats, and we're going to call them exactly what they are: pro-capitalist, pro-imperialist, pro-death.
Yep.
Whereas we support we support peace, we support the environment, we support good race relations and social justice in our society, and we support economic democracy, where workers control the means of production. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I say.
And I think that's really what a lot of people are looking for right now. When when Biden's numbers started to just fall catastrophically with what's happening in Palestine, that's like, I was already like, I don't know, like, I don't think I'm gonna vote for him, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think most people saw that, and it cascaded so completely, that I was like, well, yeah, I mean, everyone should vote how they want now, because it's not like you're getting, even if he is lesser evil, like, you're not getting him now,
Right.
because
Right.
he blew it. He blew it with all the people that he wanted, that they expect them to
Mhm.
support them. And that's, it's not on us to fix that for the Democrats, when they're really like giving us nothing.
Right.
Um,
Lesser evil is still evil. I mean, this is one thing I say about Biden. Basically, he out Trumps Trump. I mean, who built more miles of the wall in Texas?
Yeah.
Joe Biden or Donald Trump? Who imprisoned more kids in cages down there along the border?
Yeah.
Joe Biden or Trump? I'm not a fan of Trump. I don't want anyone to think that I am, but Biden has us in two wars,
Yeah.
where Trump only had us in one war. And so, I mean, like, who supports capitalism in this country? Who makes more apology for capitalism? The economic nationalist, Donald Trump, or the ultra neoliberal Joe Biden? I mean, who makes more apology for cap? At the end of the day, really, what's the difference? Joe Biden couldn't protect Roe versus Wade in the courts. He didn't. He not that he couldn't. I shouldn't say that. He didn't. That was not a priority of his. He
Yeah.
did not give us student loan forgiveness. That was not a priority of his. He drilled for oil on the North Slope of Alaska and opened up more leases in the Gulf of Mexico. He did more of that than Donald Trump did.
Right.
So really, what's the point of voting for the guy?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, if people wonder like, yeah, but like why vote for third parties that are so at a disadvantage? And it's like, well, I do think that again, it's like we're at this moment where so many people are looking for that. And if you start to put some numbers on the board for Socialist Party USA, then it becomes a little more of a reality in people's minds. And if we get people joining these organizations too, that that makes a difference. So there's strength in numbers, and that's what socialism's really about.
This is a point I want to stress right now. Like I'm not under any illusion that I'm going to win the presidency. So at some point, I'm a little bit more at liberty to say what I really believe, because I don't actually have to go and govern on any of it. I mean, that's just the reality. But the fact is that we're restarting a movement in this country that we're just at the very beginning of it. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. Even though it's a year until the election, or just under a year until the election, our goal is to focus on 2028 and 2032 and 2036. Because if we're able to get people aware of the fact that there is a socialist movement in this country, and you may say all of the different flavors of socialism in this country, including the Socialist Party USA, uh, then more people will see socialism as a real alternative. And then in 2028, when we do it again, I won't be starting from scratch. I will we'll already have people joining the Socialist Party. So we're not a small party, we're a slightly bigger party. I mean, we saw what Bernie did for DSA in 2016, where the numbers exploded from like 700 or whatever it was to like 40,000 people over the course of a year, because someone was there to energize people. Someone was there to get them talking and using the idiom of socialism and putting words to what they already thought. This is important. Bernie is unfortunate because he led sort of a cult of personality. I think that's sort of what it devolved into. Even if Bernie didn't want that, that's what it sort of happened. We're
Yeah.
going to take steps to keep that from happening over here, because I'm obviously not going to lead a cult of personality. But if we can get more people thinking along these lines, and more people thinking, okay, what would a socialist future look like? What would true workers' democracy look like? What would actual political democracy look like? It wouldn't look anything like what we got now. But if it's something that you want, now we have words for it. Now we have a movement for it. Now I know that I'm not the only one out here in the middle of Iowa that feels this way. I can reach out to my comrades and I can say, hey, look, what are we doing now about Palestine or whatever? Oh, there's a march. What are we doing about, helping striking Starbucks workers, get a union? Oh, there's a protest that we can go to. Okay, here's a network we can link into and start doing something, rather than just sitting in our basement complaining about how screwed up the government is and how bleak our future is. My job here is to try to give people hope and try to help them see, look, there's a better way possible.
Yeah.
It won't necessarily translate into an electoral victory, but I'm asking a really, really tough question of people to elect me for president. In order to do that, I have to have $1 billion and I have to have 70 million votes to even think about winning.
All right.
My success here, however, could translate into a city council win, which shows people what socialism can be on a local basis. It may help translate into a new local out in the middle of California where we didn't ever have one before, simply because of the fact that people are now energized by this. And I think this is the point of our campaign. Whatever any of the other socialist groups are, we will win if we build our party. We will win if we build our movement. And so our victory, you might say, is imminent. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. As long as we get people who are willing to listen to what we're saying, who are willing to act on what we're saying, and who are not willing to go back to sleep once they hear the message, but go out and actually tell it to other people. I think that that's how this year we will count victory. And then we'll claim victory at the end of the year when we have, however many thousands of people joining the Socialist Party or any socialist movement for that matter. If the PSL offers them something that they like, by all means. If the Socialist Party, I hope, offers people something that they like. That we have a long history, we have a strong, tradition in our past. Great leaders like Eugene Debs, who was a hardcore labor leader. We represent, this history. We also represent what could possibly be in the future. And I think that's one of the things that I'm running on this year to try to get people to imagine what that future is and to try to show people that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And listeners should look into Eugene Debs because he's a pretty incredible guy. Who?
Yeah, he's our guy.
Yeah. And it was what was it? 1920. He got
Yeah.
like a
He got a million votes from Atlanta Federal Penitentiary in 1920 while he was in jail for protesting World War I. A lot of other parties, the only other leftist party that didn't support World War One was the Social Democratic Workers' Party in Europe. That was part of the Bolshevik movement. Basically, every other socialist organization in Europe and the United States ended up supporting the World War One. Socialist Party USA stood outside that, and our leaders were arrested under the Espionage Act and thrown in prison and left to rot. Where Eugene Debs ran for president in 1920 and got 1 million votes from inside Atlanta Federal Penitentiary.
Which was like a pretty good chunk at the time. Like that was 6% or something. Like
it was a really, really admirable effort that he made from inside the jail.
Yeah. So yeah, it is possible. I always tell people there was a very major third party win at one point in our history. It was called the Republican Party, like the Whigs were blown out of their socks. But yeah, it so yeah, well, oh yeah, one other thing was that yeah, there's strength in numbers, and we should be parts of these organizations because partially what you're talking about, just simply building, and then also like people are afraid of Trump winning, and for good reason. He's talking about going after socialists and communists, and it's like, well, yeah, and that means
what's new?
We should gather. Well, yeah, yeah.
What's new?
But yeah, we should gather together. We should be together and in organizations that can defend themselves. Because if we all retreat to our homes and wait for 2028 when a Democrat beats him, so we can organize again, like that, it's just gonna stunt the growth.
Right. Democrats hate socialists more than Republicans do. Republicans don't like socialists on a philosophical level, but we're existential threats to Democrats because we're the people on their left who are pointing out that they aren't everything that they say they are.
Right.
And they don't like that.
Yeah.
They don't like that at all. I'm more worried, to be honest with you, I'm more worried about a Democrat getting elected personally. As a personal, I'm a white man, so I'm pretty privileged, I mean, I'm a white, middle class, middle 40s dude in Iowa. I'm very privileged, so I can say that from a privileged position. I'm more worried about a Democrat getting elected than I am about Trump getting elected.
Yeah. For the long term, you mean, or like
no, just like in a year. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not gonna. If you watch, if there's ever a challenger from the left of Joe Biden, like if let's say Robert Kennedy does something, I don't know, or maybe let's say Jill Stein. Let's use Jill Stein. She's more reliable. Okay, if she ever does something, watch how the media tears her apart. True. Just watch. It's not going to be Fox News tearing her apart either. It's going to be MSNBC and CNN they're going to shred her
Yeah,
because
no, you're right.
they're really afraid. Cornel West, look at what they did to him.
Yeah,
I mean, when he announced that he was running, they shredded him. This is a man of integrity, and this is a man who everyone knows what he believes, everyone knows what he says, and he might not be as left as I would like, but he was a leftist. He's to the left of Joe Biden, and he's a pro peace guy. And they just took him apart, man. They really did, because he's more of a threat to
right.
Joe Biden than the Republicans are. They're
Yeah,
courting
it's a
Republicans.
it's a good point because I remember, um, when, yeah, when they were going after Cornel West recently, Fox News was like, "Come talk to us, buddy." Like, they're snakes. They're
Right.
like insidious. They're like,
Yeah,
look what the liberals are doing to your guy. And obviously, they're no better. But like,
right.
you can say that when
Right.
Democrats
But
are.
of course, like when you're talking to evil, that they're the evil guys. When you're
Yeah,
when you're
right.
talking to Fox News, they're the evil ones. When
Yeah,
you're talking to MSNBC, they want you to think that they're your friend, and then they're
right.
going to still rip you apart. I mean, it's like, what do you want? You want the guy that has the knife right in your face. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to stab you. That way you can make sure you're backed away far enough, instead of someone that goes to embrace you and then stabs you in the back. I mean, who's better? In
Yeah,
in that case, talking to Fox News is probably better.
yeah. Um,
I don't know.
so something else I wanted to ask is, uh, I do think that, you make a good point about, like, like, sure, there's a handful of different socialist parties, and um, we can all run without being so much opposed to each other. And I uh, I wonder if, because Americans love the illusion of choice, um, if if like a multi-party socialist experiment would work in the U.S. better than like a Marxist Leninist like one party thing, um, because uh, yeah, I think that people really like that, and that could be, socialist with American, or yeah, socialism with American characteristics, like China says, because I think it does look different everywhere, and yeah, sometimes you gotta like, yeah, even Castro said, like, America should do what works for America. Um, and yeah, I guess, like, so, your thoughts on that, plus, like, anything else you would say, like, what might ease Americans' minds into, like, yes, we're using the word socialism, but like,
Well, to the first part of that, I think that the Socialist Party advocates a multi-party democracy with ranked choice voting. So you should be able to select the party or the option that best suits your preferences. And we're also realistic in the fact that that might not be the Socialist Party. That's fine. The goal is, in this sense, to make sure that the people's voices are heard, rather than we force our ideology down other people's throats. Obviously, we think that what we're saying is correct, or else we wouldn't be saying it. We're obviously not going to go advocate something that we don't agree with. But the Socialist Party is a democratic, small d democratic party, and we have to realize that we're not going to win every election or even most elections. Right now, we're in a position before the revolution, capital R revolution. We're in a position where we have to play politics. That's why we're a party, to involve ourselves not only in direct action and labor action and these kinds of things, but also in electoral politics, simply because of the fact that that's what we got to do to get to people right now. That's what we have to do. After the revolution, we expect the people to determine their own constitution. I don't imagine that our current constitution, which enshrines liberalism from top to bottom, and this two-party thing being a real substantive choice, I don't imagine that will survive. Which leads to sort of the next question that you asked: what do we do to say to people, "Oh, it's okay, we're using the S word, but it's okay, it's all right." Well, we've got socialism in this country already, and people are perfectly fine with that. And I say that because of the fact that when we talk about central planning, or when we talk about workers collectives, or these kinds of things making decisions, we already see that in things like the insurance industry, for example, where a group of bureaucrats Now, this is not what the Socialist Party stands for, by the way. We stand for democracy, where the consumers are actually have a choice. But when you think of this like planned economy or whatever that everybody's so afraid of, a group of bureaucrats decide whether or not they're going to pay your insurance claims. You don't have any say over that matter. It's all for the bottom line. We're fine with that. We're perfectly fine with the military having completely free healthcare. And as a matter of fact, we're perfectly fine with Congress having perfectly free healthcare, even though Congress is at a 28% or 25 or whatever it is percent approval rating. We're still totally fine with them having lifelong pensions after they get out of office. So if we're fine with that, why can't we be fine with that for ourselves? You know, if we're fine with those rich bastards, excuse me, having lifetime health care, lifetime protection, lifetime pension after they get out of office, even though they haven't done shit, excuse me, I'm sorry for cussing so much, even though they haven't done anything for the working person or for the poor,
Yeah.
why can't we be fine with something like that for ourselves? And it's not that everybody has to work for it, because what do Congress people work at? Most of them come in rich. They live off of their investments. That's how they get there in the first place, because they know enough people to give them tons and tons of money to be able to bury whoever their opponents are in their money. So
Right.
what do they work at? They don't work at nothing. Whereas you got an electrician out here working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, you know, and he's making enough to make it for his family, but his job isn't secure. You got even union workers whose jobs aren't secure because the unions are often in league with the Democratic Party. You know, so you got to think about it. Like, we're fine with those people having what we would consider socialism. Why can't we be fine with something like that for ourselves as well? Why should my children have to starve while some rich asshole in Washington, D.C.'s children get whatever they want? And it's not like I don't think that they should have whatever they want. I think that my kids should too. It's not that I don't think that our military should have good health care. I absolutely, as a veteran, think that they should have wonderful health care through the VA, including mental health that takes care of, you know, all the PTSD, doctors that take them seriously when they report problems sleeping at night. I think that that's absolutely essential. I think that Joe Bricklayer should have that too. I think that the person that bags my groceries should have that too. And who's going to pay for it, you might ask? Well, we put $873 billion this year into the defense budget. $873 billion could fund all of SNAP. It could fund all of pre-K, free pre-K education. It could fund all of post-secondary education. We have a $1 trillion student loan problem in this country that could be wiped out overnight with the president saying no more student loan debt.
Yeah.
Just like that. Because the government owns those loans. The government can just say, we're not going to collect it. Bam, it's gone.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need an act of Congress. Why don't we like that for ourselves? Why are we perfectly happy letting the rich get by with that and have everything? Why don't we want that stuff for ourselves? And so when you say people are afraid of socialism, I don't think they really are. I think they're just afraid of what they've been told to be afraid of. And the result is they tend to vote for Democrats or Republicans when they could have such a much better deal if they would just vote a little further left, you know, and actually vote for their own interests and vote for a third party, vote for the Socialist Party, a Socialist Party, whatever, someone who's dedicated to fighting for working people and the poor, which make up the majority of our population, rather than someone who's dedicated to fighting for the investor class and the owning class, which is what the Democratic and Republican parties are supporting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think fundamentally people are really starting to I mean, I don't know. I'm just seeing my own social media feeds, but it does seem that this is the talk of the town a bit. That people are just starting to understand that, like, oh yeah, they're all doing this to us. Like
Mhm.
they all have APAC money coming in, they all have defense money coming in,
Right.
and it's insane. You know, I try, like, sometimes I'll get angry Republicans on my TikTok comments and stuff, and I'm like, I just try to very patiently, like, I don't know, man, we're dealing
Well,
with the
that's what
same
you voted
thing.
for,
Like,
man.
yeah. Yeah.
We
Um,
want to change, man. It's up to us. If we want to change, we got to go out and do it. You know what I mean? That's just the way it has to be. If we want to change things, we got to stop playing the game by the rules of the people who made the rules for their own benefit. That's like the refs setting the rules at the football game to just make the refs look good. I mean, we got to stop doing that. If we're sick of that system, if we're sick of these rules that prevent us from living a good life, if we're sick of a society where we're told we have upward mobility, but as a matter of fact, we see our paychecks getting smaller and smaller and smaller every week because we can't stop this goddamn inflation from happening, because the Federal Reserve creates policies that are designed to keep inflation in place. Heaven forbid prices go down in this country.
Yeah.
We have a 3 point dude, they're bragging on Facebook, man. Joe Biden took a 9.7% inflation and dropped it down to 3.2%. Prices are still going up. That's what that means. Just a little slower. But people are perfectly happy with that. We shouldn't accept that. And as a society, there are 300 million of us, and there's like 50 of them. Why do we get outvoted by those people all the time?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if people can think of it as, if there's a 3.2% inflation rate and you did not get a 3.2% raise this year, you're poorer than you
went
were
backward.
last year.
Yeah. You went backward.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so on that same vein, like, is the Socialist Party running people for other positions, or?
Yep. We have socialists going on around the entire country right now. We have a socialist, uh, socialist. Yeah, he's a socialist on a green ticket. We got green ballot access a lot of places in New York. In North Carolina. One of our comrades who was in our leftist study group, actually our weekly leftist study group, where we study theory, we take a book, we talk about it from a Marxist or leftist perspective. He's running for governor of the state of North Carolina.
Wow.
Josh Bradley, who's working with my campaign, is running for city council in the I don't know, I think he's running for Congress somewhere in North Carolina. So we got people around the country right now. We got more people who are in the process of figuring out if they're going to start running, because once we got the presidential campaign sort of in place, then people see that as an opportunity to launch their own campaigns. And so I think over the next couple months, as these campaigns start heating up, we're going to see more and more people going out and actually running for office.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah.
Oh,
Anything up in the Northeast here, or?
well, I'm not sure if there's any Socialist Party members working in the Northeast, but I do know we have Socialist Party members on city councils in New Jersey, for example. Not exactly the Northeast; it's still the Mid-Atlantic, but I'm sure that there are candidates that are considering running as socialists. Maybe not from the Socialist Party USA, but there are socialists running. I know in Massachusetts right now, who who we would find a lot of common cause with, if you get what I'm saying. I know we have socialists on school boards in Minneapolis. I know we have socialists in city councils out west. We have some socialists who are considering running down south in Alabama and Arkansas. And so we got socialists, like small s socialists and capital S socialists, running all across this country right now. And the presidential campaign is sort of the marquee one. It has the potential to make the biggest splash, but I guarantee it, bang for your buck, it's those smaller down ticket races that are going to make the most difference, because
Yeah.
they can win.
Right.
And I won't be
Let's say,
elected.
come on.
Yeah, I won't be elected. So, but
Yeah.
vote for me anyway. I mean, we're going to try to get on the ballot, and the more people we get to vote for the Socialist Party, of course, that's more publicity or more awareness of what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's like, if we put some points on the board, that can really that would be a good feeling, to be like, oh, we actually got a little bit of traction here. And you're one of the what was it, the 8 official parties of the U.S. I think it said, or?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how many official parties there are. I'm pretty sure there's more than 8, though. I'd
Okay,
like to
yeah,
think we were one of the 8, but I don't.
yeah. Well,
I
because I
think that
know
there
there's
are
like
more
a
than
ton
that.
of parties, but I think, like,
Yeah.
with consistent ballot access, like something like
Um,
that. I don't
Now
know.
we don't usually have consistent ballot access in the Socialist Party, unfortunately. The
Oh,
last time we really did, we like last campaign, for example, we ran Howie Hawkins and Angela Walker. Angela Walker is a lifelong SPer. Howie Hawkins was also in the Socialist Party as well, but they ran primarily a Green campaign, and the Greens have more ballot access across the country. Libertarians have more ballot access across the country, but they're also better funded than we are. We're a small, dedicated activist organization rather
Yeah,
than
oh yeah,
really well funded.
this was it. Socialist Party continues to remain among the only 8 United States political parties officially recognized by the FEC to hold national political party status.
Well, there you go.
I don't know what that means, but it sounds cool.
Some bureaucrat says, "Oh, Socialist Party USA. I guess that's these guys." So whatever. I mean, I'd like to think that we were that important. Um, it's possible we are. I think I'd be great. But you can check it. You can check it out on the Socialist Party's website. So
Yeah,
yeah, we'll be happy to tell you all about it.
partyusa.net. Um,
Yep. Socialistpartyusa.net. That's what the Socialist Party's website is. Their principles and their platform are there. We're running on their platform primarily. We got a few of our own ideas, but primarily the goal is to announce the Socialist Party's platform and to kind of highlight what the party believes, because way more than half of our whole strategic goal here is to build the party, to continue to build the party from where it started. We had a really energetic campaign in 2016 with Mimi Soltisic, who got a lot of people, a lot of activists joining the party. So we're going to continue to try to do that kind of work and get just really active, focused on the youth, because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about directly affects 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and that kind of stuff. People that are looking at getting out of college, and now we have $60,000 of student loan debt over our heads, or I'm broke, I live in the city. What's my option? I either go in the military or go to jail. Okay, well, if I go in the military, I might be training some, Israeli soldier to go commit genocide. Or I might be, part of the group that moves tanks into Ukraine to go kill, go kill civilians or whatever the case may be. So, we're focused on a lot of the young people, but I think that's probably really what we're trying to do is build that party up. And so,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and people out there who have given up voting.
Mm.
Why not vote for the Socialist Party?
Can't hurt.
Come on.
It can't hurt. I guarantee that. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Um,
Unless you're like one of these libertarian guys who thinks that you're dirt poor, but just like any day your luck's going to change, and if you just pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, it's a little harder.
yeah.
You will become the next Bill Gates.
Oh, for sure.
That's yeah. I will never be the next Bill Gates, but
Yeah. Um, yeah, and so you've got the elections going. You have like the study group, which is that stuff is a good time. Like, I know it might sound boring to people, but like that is a really good place to learn, because like the books are dense, sometimes they're hard to get through yourself, and just having people to talk about it with, it's exciting getting like, oh wow, like there's so much written about all of this over decades
right.
and centuries. um
Right now we're doing
but
bell hooks, which is very, very approachable.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
um and but so yeah, on top of those, anything else that the party's working on
Mhm.
for building the movement? Is there anything people can get involved with?
Right. We do the anti-war working group as well, where we try to make connections with anti-war activism around the country. The Women's Commission is very important. Stephanie is actually part of that. She might be still the convener of the Women's Commission here in the Socialist Party, and they look primarily at feminist issues and how capitalism and feminism can intersect. They take a very radical feminist approach to that. We also have, I want to say we have the the Labor Rising Working Group, which is primarily designed to make connections between the Socialist Party and different labor movements. The last call I was on with the Labor Rising Working Group, for example, they were talking about the Starbucks Red Cup campaign, where they were talking about getting people to pay attention to unionization efforts among Starbucks workers. And they were trying to build a national campaign around the Starbucks unionization. And so that's actually pretty active too. All of these commissions and these working groups right now Again, you can find that on socialistpartyusa.net. We have a whole list of them. We have party organizations primarily in the East. We have organizers throughout the country. The farthest west our organizers is in Phoenix, I believe. There are socialists out in California, but I think they're unaffiliated. But we're not just building locals, we're also building at-large bases that we can get leadership from. So this is another thing that the campaign is trying to do. We're trying to build a database of information for people who want to run campaigns. But, I'm 20 years old, whatever, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. Bam, here's a clearinghouse of what people who have run campaigns have done, what they need to know how to do, how to get back ballot access, how to create commercials and build websites, these kinds of things, to kind of try to like encourage other people, even at large members, to go out into their communities and actually start running campaigns. Because the only way we're actually ever going to see socialism is from the ground up, literally. It's not going to come from the top. If I'm elected president, then my first job will be to resign.
No,
Just
no
because
Stalinism.
I'm not trying to be co-opted by the machine. I'm not trying to become the machine. I'm just trying to, trying to break stuff open as far as that goes. But obviously, I'm not going to be elected. But that doesn't mean that we can't get people in city councils and school boards and where they actually make a difference that people themselves will feel and that people can engage with directly across the country. And so that's also something that we're working with as far as the Socialist Party. I encourage anyone who even has an inkling to think about what socialism could be, to check out the Socialist Party USA's website, to check out our principles. You'll find that when you go through those things, you go right down the list and be like, yep, I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree with that. I can see how that would work. I totally agree with that. I might not agree with that, but who cares? That's just the one small part. And then you might feel like you want to sign up and join the party. I mean, we could certainly use anybody that even is an independent socialist who's looking for a party to just come check out what the party stands for, to check out what the platform of the party is, and therefore what our platform of our campaign is, and and just take some time to really kind of look at these things and consider them, rather than just saying, well, I'm a socialist, there's no point in voting or anything like that. I mean, don't give up, because that's how they basically run a train on all of us. If we give up and we don't fight back, and this is a way that I, as a socialist, am fighting back, and this is the way that people are associated with the campaign are fighting back, and members of the party are fighting back, is we're standing up and not getting kicked down. I mean, they can kick us, but they're not going to kick us into the ground. We'll die on our feet rather than whatever. And
Yeah.
that's what that's one thing I said. If Trump is elected and he comes after socialists, at least we went down fighting. At least we didn't just lay down and take it.
Yeah, because he's after everyone. The poem was first they came for the socialists, then they came
Right.
for everyone else. So,
Right.
um,
Yeah, we'll go down fighting.
yeah.
If there's any concern about that, there shouldn't be with socialists. We'll die on our feet. We won't die on our knees. That's for sure.
Yeah. Don't make that the campaign slogan, but
I'm not expecting that that's going to happen. I mean, that's like gloom and doom scenario,
yeah.
post-apocalyptic, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's Democratic Party propaganda, actually, that Trump is the Antichrist.
True,
He's no
true.
more of an Antichrist than Biden is.
Yeah, it's the Project 2025 that's scaring everyone now, which is, I mean, it's pretty insane. But the what really gets me is that why is it that the Heritage Foundation and people like Trump just can like can just go out and talk about this publicly, like we're going to dismantle the government and install a dictator, and it's like nothing happens to them. So I'm like, well, then we don't live in a democratic
Right.
serious society anyway.
The fact is that people have been so dispirited. They've gotten so dispirited, and they've gotten so demoralized by our system, by knowing that no matter what we do, we can't change anything. And because of that, they feel like they could just run whatever they want through the American population, and nobody's going to stand up. Well, people are standing up. It's about time that people are standing up. And I don't know what's going to take to wake people up, but people are waking up. That's what's happening right now. That's
Yeah.
why the Socialist Party is running. That's why we see other leftist parties running. That's why we see Jill Stein, going out there and people in the Democratic Party freaking out about Jill Stein, even though they know exactly what she is. That's why people are freaking out about Cornel West. No one's freaking out about the Socialist Party yet. But I'd like to see us up there when they start like the enemies of the Democratic Party, Jill Stein and Cornel West, and maybe Bill Stodden someday. Hopefully, I'll keep my fingers crossed. But people are waking up and people are realizing that we get a rotten shake out of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. They're basically the same party. There's not really a dime worth of difference between the two, and they're looking for alternatives. And I think that the more we can get out there, the more that socialist parties across the country can get out there, the more people can see that there is an alternative, which is really important.
Yeah, totally. Well, so is there anything else you want to get in? Because I think we've hit a lot of good stuff here.
Yes, SPUSA 2024 across all social platforms. SPUSA2024.org. That's our website. We're going to have a full website up here in a matter of weeks. Our current webmaster is actually putting up very flattering photographs of myself on the front of it, which is kind of, he's working on it. But right now it points at our donation page. Plus, we have SPUSA 2024/volunteer. If you're interested in getting involved with the campaign, we got a lot of room for growth. We need a lot of volunteers to do things like work on ballot access, or work on social media, or make contacts with the media, write press releases, write policy statements for the campaign, work with teams to do this, to kind of be the core working group of the campaign. So if it's something you're interested in doing, go ahead and sign up for that. Sign up at that website, 2024, SPUSA2024.org/volunteer, plus Facebook, Instagram. Soon we'll have a TikTok where I'm dancing, or whatever they do for the Chinese. Twitter as well. We're on Twitter as well, even though Twitter is kind of low volume. Once we get more people working on social media, we'll have more of a presence on these things. But we're primarily on Facebook right now. But
TikTok's
join
kind
us there and check it out.
of, yeah, TikTok's kind of where it's at. I feel a million years old on it, but people are
Yeah.
watching it, so it's the place to be.
I don't know any of the dances, but I have a daughter who does, and so she'll
Oh,
be
good.
happy to show me the steps.
Very cool. Well, Bill, thank you so much for doing this. This was a really cool opportunity, and I appreciated hearing more about this, and I'm sure viewers will as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So check out those socials and the websites, and keep fighting. Bye, everyone.
We will. We sure will.